right, let's get started. My name is Katie Landis. I am the assistant farm manager here at Trailside Organic Farm. Trailside Organic Farm is a partnership between Cornwall Manor, which is a continuing care retirement community, and that just means that once a resident moves in here, Cornwall Manor can provide care for them throughout their whole entire life. And the other partnership is between the Rodale Institute, which you're probably familiar with already, but it is a nonprofit organization that's focused on agricultural research and education. Oops. Okay. Bear with me while I figure out my settings here. So this presentation was originally submitted by Ian Frederick, but he passed it off to me about a month ago. We have both been with Trailside Organic Farm since the very first season of production, so you're in good hands. I did build a couple of Q&A breaks into the webinar, mostly just to give myself a break from talking. But if you want to ask any questions, there's a Q&A button that you can use to ask questions throughout the webinar, and I will get to them either in those breaks or at the end of the presentation. All right. So the story of Trailside Organic Farm started with Vicki Dietzler. She is Cornwall Manor's Vice President for Advancement, and she was familiar with the Rodale Institute and knew about its partnership with the St. Luke's Organic Farm. That's up in the Allentown area. St. Luke's grows over 30 varieties of fruits and vegetables on 14 acres. They deliver those vegetables to the kitchens around St. Luke's. St. Luke's different hospitals, and they do a CSA for the hospital employees. So Vicki loved that idea of farm to institution, and she wanted to take it to Cornwall Manor. So she approached the leadership team and the board of directors with the idea that Cornwall Manor should be growing the best possible food for their residents, and of course they agreed. Why wouldn't they? Both organizations share missions relating to longevity, lifelong learning, staying active, both mentally and physically, and she just thought it would be a really good fit. Some notes about retirement age. So a lot of retirees want to stay as healthy as possible. This demographic is increasingly valuing organic and whole food options. Many have given up a garden or even a small farm to move to a retirement community, especially in this area. The people here are really active. They want to stay healthy as long as possible. The rail trail, the Lebanon Valley Rail Trail, actually runs right through the middle of Cornwall Manor's campus and alongside the farm. So we will often see residents out there walking their dogs or jogging or running or riding bike. We want to provide as much nutrition and on a very hyper-local scale. So Cornwall Manor is home to 650 residents. Many of them, like I said, are very active. They're also very involved. There are a lot of resident-run committees here on campus. There's a garden and greenhouse committee. There's a tree and environment committee. Statistics show that people who live in retirement communities live an average of 2 years longer than people who live alone, and that is attributed to environment. So in addition to all the committees and all the activities Cornwall Manor has going on, the farm also adds to that environment by providing nutrient-dense organic food. It provides opportunities for residents to learn, to remain active, to socialize, to be well, and also provides ecological and aesthetic value. So let's talk about the investments that Cornwall Manor had to make to bring the farm to their campus. The project was initially announced in March 2021 when teams from both organizations selected a 2.5-acre plot of land adjacent to Cornwall Manor's Woods campus. You can't really see it on either of these pictures, but at the very top of the line, you can see the Lebanon Valley Rail Trail there, and the Woods campus is right on the other side of that rail trail. So this land was partially wooded, and it was also partially a dump site from the nearby Cornwall iron furnaces operations in the 1700s and 1800s, and then more recently from Cornwall Manor's own construction operations. A lot of the debris was removed. A layer of topsoil was actually brought in from a nearby stream bank restoration project. And in the fall of 2021, after the grading was completed, Ian Frederick, who I mentioned before, he sowed a cover crop that would grow over the winter, and that would help stabilize the soil and start to build the soil quality. In March 2022, we planted our first crops of land crops on the land. You can see down there in the bottom picture, we only went with half of the farm. We just wanted to get a feel for how things would grow here. We didn't know how much we'd be able to produce or how much they would need. So we just wanted to like try to test things out. So we grew on half the land, and then the other half we put into a cover crop. That picture there from August, I'm guessing is between our, when we mowed down and tilled in our spring cover crop, and then when we planted our fall cover crop. So it looks pretty bare, but we try to keep cover crops on the soil as much as possible. And then you can see in that little picture there, that's some residents helping us plant our very first crop. Our first crop in the ground was garlic. We actually planted that garlic in the greenhouse the fall beforehand and let it grow in the greenhouse just in like a plug tray over the winter, and then planted it out in the spring. Not the best way to go grow garlic, but it worked for our first season. Some other investments that Cornwall Manor made to bring the farm here. They hired a crew to install deer fencing around the entire 2.5 acre plot. So the deer fencing is 8 feet tall. It has 3 access gates. If I go back to this picture, you can kind of see the line of the deer fencing around the farm there. They also came in and drilled a well so that we could have irrigation water, and they ran underground irrigation lines pretty much the whole way around the interior of the deer fencing. So we have 7 hydrants spaced evenly around the farm that we can hook up our different fields and irrigate different fields at different times with that well water. And then during the spring of 2023, a 2-story bank barn was constructed. So there's a picture of it under construction, and here are some pictures of it finished. The lower level is where all of our farm operations happen, where we wash produce, where we pack, where we store. We have 2 walk-in refrigerators on the lower level. We set them at different temperatures for the different crop needs. The lower level also has storage for equipment and all of our like supplies, all of our fertilizer and seeds and implements and things like that. In our office spaces down here on the lower level. And then the upper level has a community space for the residents. It's basically just a big multi-purpose room. You can see in that top left-hand picture, art class is happening. And then in the top right, that's Ian giving a presentation. We start all of our farm tours up in that community room with a little presentation and a slideshow before we bring people out to check out the rest of the farm. The upper level also has tool storage for some resident garden plots, which you can't see in either of these pictures, but they are just across the parking lot on the other side of the barn. Other infrastructure that we needed, that we've kind of acquired over the years, a greenhouse. It has electricity for fans and vents and lights, heat mats, all that kind of stuff. It also has a heater in it. We are working right now to get that hardwired. For the past couple seasons, we've had extension cords running from the barn out to that greenhouse, and has worked, but it's not ideal. So once that's hardwired, we'll be able to have automatic vent openers. We'll be able to, have thermostat controlled heat and fans in there. And that will save us a lot of headache and just make everything work well. But this has been working for the past few years. We also have 3 hoop houses. You can see them in the distance in that bigger picture there. We built those basically one a year for the past few years. And now since we have 3 of them, we can do crop rotation in those. We do, in the summer, we do heat-loving crops that we can trellis up to the roof lines of those hoop houses. And then in the winter, the spring and the fall too, we do crops that are cool season crops, but that want a little bit of extra protection. So right now we have lettuce, kale, collards, we have carrots and beets and radishes, spinach and arugula growing in those hoop houses. And I should say, I guess, those hoop houses don't have any kind of electricity going to them. They are purely like solar powered. The sun warms up the soil inside, and that keeps the crops alive over the winter. So other equipment that we have that we've acquired or Cornwall Manor has invested in over the years, we have a tractor. Depending on the size of the farm that you would want to start or that you would have either at a retirement community or elsewhere, you might not need a tractor. You might be able to get away with like a walk behind, like a BCS style rototiller. But we have a tractor and we use it a lot and we love it. We also have a bunch of implements that we can put on the back of that tractor. I have some listed there: a plow, a disc, a rototiller. We have a plastic layer. That picture in the top left corner is a water wheel transplanter, so we can transplant stuff more efficiently. We also have a manure spreader that we use to spread leaf compost and chicken litter in the fall. We have two gators. They were both very generously donated to us from a resident here at Cornwall Manor. They are amazing. We've had the one since our first season and it was really great, but now having two is just even better. So we're very, very happy to have those gators. Before we had either of them, we were driving the truck out into the fields to harvest and it was just very big. We would get it stuck occasionally. Now we have the gators and we love them. And speaking of the truck, yeah, you would need, well, I don't know if you would need a vehicle, but we need a vehicle to be able to pick up supplies, but also to be able to deliver produce. Both of the areas that we deliver to are maybe a 5-minute drive from here. The farm is, Cornwall Manor is pretty big and a little bit spread out, so we need to be able to get produce there. We can't just take it there with the gator. Other considerations that you need to think about, there's a bunch of small equipment that you would need to have around a farm. Tools like a lawnmower, rototiller, weed whacker, um, things like seeders. We have broadcast seeders. We don't have a vacuum seeder for a greenhouse, but that would be a thing that you might consider having, just little hand seeders, things like that. Hand tools, there's a pruner pictured there. We have trowels, all kinds of other little implements you might need, knives for harvest. Any construction tools you might need. We built shelving in our barn. We built greenhouse benches. So we've done some construction projects over the years. So we don't have a lot of tools. A lot of times either Ian and I would just like bring something from home if we thought we would need it once or twice. But we do have like a miter saw. We have a drill, some small things like that. And then any equipment maintenance you would need to do. So if you need like a grease gun, different types of wrenches, sockets, things like that, you need to think about all that stuff. And then harvesting and packing does require some stuff. You can see in that bottom picture all of our bins there. We use the green and yellow ones for harvesting, and then the blue ones go out with clean produce when we deliver the clean produce. We have a bunch of bins. We also have a couple scales, knives, rubber bands, bags for packing, things like that. And then there's a lot involved in growing too. So soil seeds and trays are the obvious ones. We also use fertilizer. We use granular fertilizer in the fields at the beginning of the season, and then we use liquid fertilizer that we run through irrigation throughout the season. So we have a fertilizer injector to be able to do that. Liquid fertilizer. Also the irrigation needs. We run drip line underneath all of our planting beds, and that connects to header lines, which connects to hoses, which connect to the hydrant. So all those connections. There's a lot of little irrigation parts that you need. And then the only other big thing I could think of was row covers. We do a lot of row covers for pest exclusion around the farm. So that would be the row covers, but also the hoops that go underneath them and sandbags to hold them down. And then I'm sure there's a bunch of other stuff that I'm forgetting, but those are the big items I could think about. All right, I'm going to take a pause. I'm going to drink some water. If anyone has questions, you can put them in the Q&A. Let me see if I can figure out how to look at that without getting rid of everything else. All right, great. Couple of questions here. First, are you going to talk about using volunteer labor? Yes, I will get to volunteer labor when I talk about how we interact with the residents. Does Cornwall Manor use organic methods on the lawns and flower beds? So we use organic methods. Everywhere inside of our deer fence is certified organic, so we use them everywhere there. And then anything that we are responsible for, we also use organic methods, even though it's not certified. And it doesn't need to be because we're not harvesting things. But yeah, so we have like grassy lawns around the farm and the flower beds in front of the farm. are in front of the barn. Those are all maintained organically. There are resident garden plots on, like I said, on the other side of the parking lot. Those are not certified organic, and I don't know how, I don't know if they're maintained organically because the residents can kind of do whatever they want in them. So a lot of the people here who are friends of the farm and who are into gardening do use organic practices, they're probably not completely organic. We did convince maintenance to pull the weeds in the pathways in that resident garden bed instead of spraying them. So that's a win for us and a win for everyone in there who wants to be able to grow organically in their resident garden plot. But I can't really speak to much else beside what we're managing. We are in zone 7A. We used to be 6B, but we have recently moved up to 7A. Were we concerned with contaminants from the old site? We got a soil test done, and we got a letter signed by the, I don't know, manager of the township where the soil that came from off-site was, saying that it was a stream bank, so there was nothing intentionally done to it. No, we're not. There could be, I guess, depending on, I don't know. I can't answer that. I'm not concerned. It's been years and our stuff seems good. And we've just been trying to build up the soil and add more topsoil and build it up so that, our roots aren't going as deep anymore. But no, I'm not concerned about it. How many full-time staff do you have? I didn't talk about it yet, but I'm going to talk about how many full-time staff we have on the farm when I get to this next slide. Because it was a dump site, did you have the soil tested and the well water? Yes, the well water has been tested and it is fine. And we did some soil testing at the beginning for heavy metals and we didn't have any concerns there. So yeah, like that's pretty similar to the other question. Yes, I think we're good. But yeah, those are great questions. Thanks for asking. How could a farmer identify a retirement community that might be interested in this amenity/feature? I'm thinking of land access challenges and suburban farming opportunities for new and beginning farmers. That's a really good question. Um, I don't know. Let me think about that. I know that Cornwall Manor does receive calls from other retirement communities who are interested in the project. We've had several, CEOs and stuff come out here from other communities who are interested in learning about it. But I'm not really sure how a farmer could get connected with them. Let me try to think about that and get back to you. I don't know how I can, but but I will remember your name and try to figure out. Somebody here knows how I can get back to you about that. Rodale has their program to teach new and young farmers. Yes, Rodale does do stuff with new and young farmers. I have never been through that program. I'm not that familiar with it, but I think that if somebody else from Rodale is on this call, they could answer that question for you. Is the farm a nonprofit organization? So Cornwall Manor and Rodale Institute are both nonprofits. And the farm is managed by Rodale but owned by Cornwall Manor. So the farm itself isn't even really a business. It's just a farm that operates within a larger nonprofit organization. Okay. All right. I'm going to keep going and then we'll have more time at the end for questions. Okay, day to day, what does the farm look like? We have two full-time year-round staff. So far it has been Ian and I. We've been here since the beginning full-time. Our first growing season, it was just the two of us because we didn't know how much work we would have. Realistically, we didn't want to use money from the budget for a third person if we didn't think we would need them. But then after that first season, we did hire a seasonal worker. They were part-time for 2 years, and then this past season, Ariel, who's in that picture with us, was here full-time from April through October, and that was perfect. We had enough work for everybody. We got a lot of stuff done. It was really great having a third set of hands to help out. So our produce, herbs, and flowers go to 3 different places. They go to 2 different kitchens on campus. There is a kitchen in the community center, which serves a restaurant and a cafe where everyone, residents, staff, anyone can, well, not anyone, not the public, but anyone who's here on campus can go and eat. They also have a kitchen in the assisted living facility that we deliver produce to, and they're currently finishing up construction on a clubhouse, which is a different name for another community center, and that has a kitchen in it. So soon we'll be delivering produce to that kitchen as well. We also have a farmers market once a week where staff and residents can come and shop if they're still cooking for themselves. And then anything that we can't move either to the kitchens or at the farmers market, we donate. We work with 1 and sometimes 2 local nonprofits that have food pantries, and we are very fortunate that we have a resident or a person who's on the residential waiting list who has been coming and picking up our produce, taking it to the donation places, and then bringing back our bins. That's really been a huge time saver for us. When I get towards the end of the presentation and talk about some of the challenges, getting food, to the people that want it was definitely one of our challenges at the beginning. So, how do we decide what to grow? We have a meeting with the chefs every fall where we talk about what they liked, what they didn't like, if they want us to try something new, if we were sending enough of things, or if they were getting way too much. If the things were big enough, our first couple seasons, they were not happy with the size of our onions. They don't want to chop up a bunch of tiny onions. They want to just chop up one big onion. So we've worked to kind of tailor what we're growing to meet their needs as best as we can. We also get feedback from the farmers market customers about what they want us to grow. And then we take all that information and we build the farm plan for the following season with it. So we grow a lot of stuff, basically everything, all the normal things. We don't grow too many odd things because we don't have a market for them. But we grow leafy greens. We try to do lettuce for as much of the year as we can. We're still working on trying to figure out how to do lettuce in July and August when it's really hot, and how to get it to grow in February and March when it's really cold. But the rest of the time, we are growing lettuce. We also do things like kale, Swiss chard, collards, other leafy greens like that. We do all the kitchen staples: tomatoes, peppers, eggplant, zucchini, cucumbers. We have root crops like carrots and radishes, onions and sweet potatoes. Other storage crops like butternuts and spaghetti squash, acorn squash. We grow watermelons and cantaloupe. We have realized over the years that nobody wants seeded watermelons, so we're only growing seedless watermelons now, which take a little bit more care, but that makes everybody much happier. This year, we had our first raspberry harvest this fall, and then we planted strawberries this year. So next year, we'll have our first strawberry harvest. And we also do herbs for the dining services. We've tried to sell herbs at the farmers market a couple times, and they just don't really sell very well, or we'll sell like one bunch. So it's not really worth it. But we came up with a plan this year where we are just harvesting small amounts of all the herbs we're growing and sending them to dining services without them having to request them, because it was just too much for them to be like, oh, I want a little bit of this and a little bit of that. No, we're just sending them all the herbs every week. And that's been working out really well for them. They know it's going to be coming. It's reliable. We also do cut flowers. We do make bouquets that we sell at the farmers market every week. And then there are a few different people around Cornwall Manor who use them either to decorate their areas. Like we give a bucket of just bulk flowers to the woman who runs the cafe, and she puts them out on the tables in the cafe. And we give another bucket to somebody who works in the health center, and she does activities with the residents with those. So we love doing the cut flowers. They're our best seller every year. It's like the biggest, when we tally up how much money we made on all these different things, cut flowers is definitely one of the biggest. People seem to love them, and we're happy to do them too. Flowers are food for the soul. Here's some pictures of just our flowers and our produce. Oh, I didn't mention pumpkins. We do grow pumpkins every year. Cornwall Manor has a fall festival in September, and they do a pumpkin decorating contest. So we provide the pumpkins for that. Some more pictures. There's some other cute little pumpkins. Our sweet potatoes curing in the greenhouse. And there's our lettuce and spinach on the salad bar at the restaurant. So let's talk about how we work with the residents here at Cornwall Manor. We have tried to come up with as many ways as we can to work with, educate, and engage with the residents, and that is why we're here. Pretty much everything we do, is to improve the lives of the residents at Cornwall Manor. So we have weekly volunteer opportunities for almost everybody. There are some people that can't make it out to the farm, and some of them would still like to support us, but we can't really provide volunteer opportunities for everybody here. But we try to get as many as we can. So we have some residents who like to help us with harvesting, things like flowers and herbs or the raspberries. We don't have them lifting heavy bins of watermelons or anything like that. We also get a lot of help with washing, sorting, and packing produce. Um, our our wash pack area is pretty friendly for anyone to come help as long as you can stand for a little bit of time. So we have residents help with that stuff. And in the spring, we get help in the greenhouse with seeding. So just one tip, if you are going to be working with residents, I imagine this would apply to also school age children too. Save the biggest seeds for them. They're easier for them to see and easier for them to more precisely plant. And then the little tiny seeds you want to do for yourselves, that makes it easier for everyone. It's more accurate and everyone's happier when they can like kind of see what they're doing and it's an easier job. Another way we engage residents is through our events. We have one or two every month. These are things like farm tours. We do a spring open house here. This year we had our first pick your own day where residents could come out. They could bring their kids, their grandkids, and just kind of walk around the farm, see everything growing. And we were around to help them pick things, or if they wanted to go out on their own and pick, they were happy to do that. We also do a lot of workshops here. So we've had some workshops, especially like in the fall and the winter, where we just pick a certain crop and we do a deep dive into it, where we talk about like where it comes from, how we plant it, how we grow it. We do different recipes. We've had like little tastings too for certain crops. We also do a fair number of DIY workshops. So we have a DIY bouquet workshop. This year we did two different planter workshops, one in the spring and then one in the fall. Those are really popular because a lot of the residents here live in apartments and they don't have yards where they can kind of mess around with their landscaping, or they don't, have gardens, but they can handle a planter that they can put on their balcony or on their patio. And then any workshop that we can bring indoors, we do. So a lot of our workshops happen either over at the community center or out here at the farm. But like I said earlier, there are some residents, especially those who are in like assisted living or who are in the health center, that can't make it out to the farm or make it down to the community center. So we've done a couple workshops this season that we were able to take to them. So we did a flower arranging workshop. Everyone loves the DIY flower bouquets. They're very popular. And then this fall, we did a kale planter workshop for our independent living residents, the ones who could make it out to the community center. And then for the ones in the health center and in assisted living, we did a little gourd centerpiece where we took gourds that we grew, we took little dried flower bunches that we grew, and pine cones that we foraged, acorns that we foraged, and we made these cute little like centerpieces that they could either have in their room, or a couple of the ladies were saying that they were going to put them on the tables in the dining area where they eat their meals. So whenever we can engage with more people around the campus, we try to. So we've also hosted some field trips. We have taken Cornwall Manor residents up to Rodale's main campus in Kutztown a couple times for a farm tour up there. And we've also had some outside groups come into Cornwall Manor, like school groups. We've had a college class. The local elementary school has come a couple times. And we have residents help us with those field trips. Any questions about resident engagement? Or anything really, whatever. How are the farm staff salaries funded? So I'm not too involved with the money of things, but Cornwall Manor and Rodale Institute have a contract. It's either a 3 or a 5 year contract where they've worked out. an appropriate amount that includes salaries, it includes all of our supplies, kind of everything we need to operate the farm, and Cornwall Manor pays Rodale Institute those fees. And then Rodale Institute kind of manages the farm. So the funding, I would say the funding comes from Cornwall Manor. It's something that's really important for them to have. I will say we're not making money, like we're not selling enough produce to pay our salaries, but the for Cornwall Manor, the marketing appeal is really why we're here, and because they want us, they want this healthy food they want to be able to say we're growing our own food and serving it to our residents. They've had a bunch of people, I personally have heard from at least 5 residents who said that they're here because of the farm. So I know they get a lot of calls, a lot of inquiries, people coming because either the Rodale name or because they want to be somewhere, where they can still play in the dirt and they can still have that like farming experience. A lot of our residents have lived on farms in the past. So this is like they still get a little bit of a taste of it without having to be responsible for it. All right, I'm gonna keep going. Actually, I'm gonna drink water and then I'm gonna keep going. All right, next I want to talk about some challenges and successes over the years. So there have been many challenges and successes, like there is in every farming endeavor. What I find most interesting is that our biggest successes come out of our biggest challenges. So obviously the first one, not obviously to you, but obviously to me, the first one was our soil. When we started out, it was not great. It was very compacted from the grading that happened during site prep. It was also full of debris, some left over from when it was a dump site, and some that was brought in with the topsoil from that stream bank restoration project. I don't know how they restore a stream bank, but it seemed like they'd kind of just scraped off all the soil, all the branches, all the roots, everything that was in the soil, and brought it over to the farm. So our first season, we were pulling out these like huge chunks of concrete. We were pulling out big like roots, tree branches that were, this big around, just a lot of debris. Every single time we went through with the plow or the rototiller, we would go through again with either the tractor bucket or with a gator and just pick rocks, and then, take them and dump them in the tree line. So it's gotten a lot better since then. We still have rocks, but now it's kind of like if you come across one, you kind of throw it to the edge of the field, and then maybe once a month or once every other month, we go through and pick up a bunch of rocks, but it's way better than it was. The soil here is also really heavy clay, so after it rains, it gets really sticky and gloopy. And then there's maybe a day or two in the middle where it's really nice to work with, and then it dries out and it gets really hard. And if you try to break it up, it just turns powdery. So working with the soil was a challenge. It still is a challenge, but it's getting a lot better. So some things we did to improve the soil. We added topsoil our first season. There was a construction project happening elsewhere on Cornwall Manor's campus where they had to remove a lot of topsoil and they piled it up outside the fence, and we used our tractor bucket to bring it in. We probably, I would say maybe we added maybe an inch or two of topsoil to the whole entire farm that way. So that was one thing we did. We also went through with a subsoiler. This picture here of that yellow implement is a subsoiler, so it doesn't turn the soil over or anything. It just kind of digs a big furrow in the soil everywhere that you drive. So that really helped a lot with drainage just by going through with that. It also got caught on some really big rocks that we were able to get out. We dug drainage ditches along both sides of our farm lane, so water can run off the farm lane and lay in those ditches and run down the length of the farm. The whole farm is on a slight slope, so this way water can run down off instead of sitting in pockets or instead of like flooding out our fields. We amended with compost. We do this every fall. We get leaves from the local municipalities when they're doing their leaf collection. They come here, they dump them. We make this huge pile of leaves that we turn throughout the year. And then the following fall, we spread those out over all of our fields. We do the same thing with chicken litter that we get from a local organic chicken grower. You can see in that picture down there with our manure spreader, that's us spreading either leaves or the chicken litter around. And then we do a lot of cover cropping. We try to always have the farm covered in some kind of crop, whether it's a cash crop or a cover crop. So every fall we spread a cover crop over almost the entire farm. There's still a couple spots out there that have crops growing in them, so they're not cover cropped yet. And then if we have like a little piece of time between maybe a spring and a fall crop, we'll stick a summer cover crop into. And then when we mow those cover crops down and work that green material into the soil, as it breaks down, it adds nutrients to the soil. It helps build soil organic matter and just improve the quality of the soil. So there's still a lot of room for improvement here, but we have noticed differences. When we go to plant, it's a lot easier to plant. When we go to irrigate, the soil stays wetter longer. So yeah, we're just going to keep working on that. But yeah, we've definitely noticed some differences in the 4 seasons that we've been here. Our next challenge and success is how to handle all the produce that we're growing. So Cornwall Manor has a single buyer model. The tax structure here dictates that everything that we do at the farm benefits the residents of Cornwall Manor. This means that we can't sell outside of the organization. We don't even have our farmers market open up to the public. I mean, if someone comes, we're not going to turn them away, but we don't do any kind of advertising that we have a farmers market here. So we've really had to work to kind of refine what we're growing to best meet the needs of the chefs here and the farmers market customers without having too much extra. But you don't want to underplant and then not have enough for them. So it's been a challenge trying to find like where that line is. Along those same lines, we want to make sure that we have enough for as long of a period as we can to meet the demands of the chefs. So for example, we plant zucchini and we get 500 pounds of zucchini a week for like, say 8 weeks, but the chefs want 100 pounds of zucchini a week every single week for the whole year. Well, we can't do that, but we can try to grow smaller amounts in successions over a longer period of time so that we can better meet their needs without overwhelming them, trying to send them 500 pounds of zucchini. So we've done that with several of our crops. Zucchini is a good example, something that we grow smaller amounts over a longer period of time so that we have them to harvest for the whole season. We do that with tomatoes. We do it with cantaloupes, watermelons, things that we don't want to have a giant harvest of all at once. The third food-related challenge would be chef education. Obviously, the chefs know way more about food than I do, but not so much about like how to run a farm-to-table operation. So we've had to work with them to get flexibility and seasonality built into the dining menus. This is an ongoing challenge, but we keep talking to them about it. We keep working with them. And the chefs that we have right now are really good. They really want the farm to be here. They want to take our produce whenever they can. So yeah, they've been great to work with. It's just, they also need reliability and consistency, and we can't provide that as much of the year as we would like to. But with the tunnels and with our succession planting, we're really trying to extend the season as long as we can so that we can give them as much food as they want. And I talked about it a little bit before, but I'll go into more details about what we do with our excess produce. So since the start of the farm, we've been working with the Chestnut Street Community Center. That's here in downtown Lebanon, close to the farm. And they take whatever we have left over, unless it's too much for them to handle. There have been a couple times, like when we have 500 pounds of zucchini, where they can't take everything. They don't have a huge distribution area. There's another larger food bank in the area, but their intake process is more complicated. And we found that we were spending a lot of time driving around delivering produce that we weren't getting paid for at all. And we were actually losing money on it. If you think about like all the labor that goes into planting those seeds and planting those plants in the ground and harvesting and processing and packing and all that stuff. So our second season, Chestnut Street actually teamed up with Penn State Health to get us some funding to cover some of those labor costs, and that was great. That funding only lasted 1 year, though it wasn't available after that. Last winter, we were in communication with the Central Pennsylvania Food Bank System to move our excess produce through them and then receive payment for it from the Pennsylvania Agricultural Surplus God, let me start over. Pennsylvania Agricultural Surplus System. They call it the PASS program. That funding, some of it came from the federal government, and you probably know as well as I do that those federal funds dried up this spring, so that outlet went away too. So we weren't able to get any extra money for the produce we donated this year, but Cornwall Manor is a nonprofit. Giving back to the community is very important to them. And even if we weren't able to find someone to offset any of that labor costs, they were still happy that we were able to find a place for it and donate it, and that none of it went to waste. So we're going to continue doing that. We'll obviously still try to find ways that we can, make more money from our produce, but knowing that we can donate it and that Cornwall Manor is okay with that is really great. We're happy with that. So the next challenge and success would be resident engagement. We have struggled to find enough volunteer jobs that are appropriate for all the levels of residents, their ability levels. So we have 25 residents on our volunteer list currently. And in the past, we've only been able to offer 3 or 4 opportunities a week at the farm, and then maybe another 2 or 3 helping out with the farmers market. We know that if we were able to open up more opportunities, we would have more interest and we would have people coming out to help us. But it takes time to set up volunteer jobs. You have to think about what jobs people are able to do. There's some oversight that needs to happen, and all that is kind of straining on our system when we're trying to run a farm too. So this is something we're working on. We're trying to figure out how we can engage with the residents more, how we can have them help us out more. And that's a project for this winter, is to try to figure out how we can get more residents out here at the farm. I mentioned this earlier about how we like to do workshops for all abilities. That's been another challenge, like trying to think of new things that we can take to the residents who aren't able to come out to the farm or to the community center. Like I said, this year we had a few new workshops for them. We're going to keep trying to figure out new workshops. That leads into my third point here, new ideas. Some people are kind of happy to do the same thing every year. Like the DIY bouquet workshop is a hit every year. Everybody loves to make a flower bouquet, and that's not something that lasts, more than a couple weeks. So then by the time the next one rolls around, they're eager to make another one. But we have struggled to come up with new ideas for things. People don't want to do the same thing every year. I'll give you an example. Our first season, we did a seed potato cutting workshop where we talked about potatoes, how they grow, how we're growing them, how we plant them, why we're cutting them. And while we were talking, the residents helped us cut our seed potatoes for planting, the next day. And our first season, it was really well attended. The second time we did it, we had 5 people show up. And then our third year, only 1 resident showed up. So that's an extreme example, but you get the idea that people want to see new things. So that's been a challenge, trying to come up with new ideas that we can do. I'm going to end on a success that I think is just going to keep getting better. So Cornwall Manor has their Blooms and More plant sale every spring. This happens over Mother's Day weekend, and it's been going on for many years. It is resident run, and it typically has featured hanging baskets, house plants, potted containers, things like that the residents grow and then donate to the sale. All the money that is raised at the sale goes into Cornwall Manor's Benevolent Care Fund to provide continuing care for every resident, regardless of their financial status as they age. So last year, Trailside Organic Farm grew organic vegetables. We did some annual flowers. We did native perennial plants. And that was a big success. People liked them. They bought our stuff. They want to see more. We got a lot of feedback about that. So we're going to continue to kind of refine what we're growing for that, expand where we see the need for expansion, and obviously reduce the numbers of things that didn't sell that well. But we had a really good turnout from that and a lot of good feedback. So we're happy to keep doing that. All right, that is all I have. There's a few minutes left for questions if anyone has any. Let me get back to that Q&A bar. Someone is asking how large the farm is and how large is Cornwall Manor's campus. The farm's 2.5 acres. I don't know how big Cornwall Manor is. It is pretty big. There's some wooded areas. It's pretty spread out over two different campuses. But yeah, I really don't know how big it is. There's 650 residents. I know that. Some of them live in single family homes and in duplexes. Some are in apartments. Some are in assisted living, which is like a nursing home setting. And then there's a health center that I think has 60 rooms in it. I'm not really sure about that. I shouldn't speak. But there's a health center too, so some residents are there, the ones that need a lot of care. Does the farm staff have a background in working with seniors slash public health or other training background related to working in a senior living community? If not, how have you gained those skills? No, we do not. Well, I shouldn't say that. I have worked with adults with intellectual disabilities before, but not in any kind of like trained capacity. Just the farm I worked at before this was a nonprofit farm that was catered towards adults with disabilities. Ariel has also worked with adults with disabilities. Neither of us have worked with seniors per se. Um, so it's just been kind of like, I don't know, like learning how to adapt to them. Yeah. And listen to what they want to do, right? Like they're all retired and like kind of do whatever they want. So you just have to tailor what you're doing to what they want to do. Do you expect that Cornwall Manor will want to renew the contract beyond the initial 5 years? Well, they already have. The first 5 years is over and we're into a new, I don't know if it's 3 or 5, but they're in a new contract. So yeah, I think so. I think they really value the Rodale name. I was just talking to the CEO a couple days ago, and he was saying that he was talking to a resident who, yeah, was moving here from California because she'd heard of the Rodale Institute out there and wanted to know more about and be a part of this retirement community and its partnerships. So yeah, I think that they'll keep it going. I think they're happy with it. All right, that's all the questions in the Q&A. I'm going to see if I can check the chat here and see what's there. Oh, great. This person says there are searchable directories of continuing care retirement communities that you could search for to see if any are near you. That would be a good way to find out and get in contact and see if they want to, yeah, start a farm. And yep, there's the veteran training program for people who were asking about that. Have you checked out the Horticultural Therapy Institute? No, but I will. That's a great idea. Thank you. Does Cornwall Manor have a volunteer service coordinator to help providing oversight to volunteers? There is a volunteer coordinator at Cornwall Manor who handles all the tracking of how many hours residents are putting in for volunteering. But she is not out at the farm. I don't think that that would be on Cornwall Manor to kind of oversee what volunteers are doing out here. 85 acres. Thanks, Terry. Cornwall Manor is 85 acres. Okay, well, I think that's it. My email address is right there if you have any other questions or if you think of something later and you want to shoot me an email, I am happy to answer it for you. But thanks, everybody. Yeah, this was great. I really enjoyed it a lot and hope to interact with some of you in the future.